This morning's reading is from Romans chapter 8, 12 through 25. So then, brothers and sisters, we are obligated not to the flesh to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die, but if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of our body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you received a spirit of adoption. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is that very Spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. If we in fact suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole of creation has been groaning together as it suffers together the pains of labor. And not only creation, but we are ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what one already sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. May God bless the reading and hearing of these words.
Sometimes that thanks be to God comes harder than other times, comes slower than other times. I have a degree in this, right? I have a few degrees in this, an undergraduate degree in religious studies, a master's degree, and I read biblical studies for fun, and I have no idea what Paul just said. Not on the page. You can't get it on the page. We are limited by how we preach Scripture week to week. Romans was read in its entirety to the gathered community of Christians in Rome in one sitting. There were no chapters, there are no verses. It was a communication from a leader of the church, a thinker who had not been there, to the people who were gathered in Rome. It was read from start to finish. Dear Romans, sincerely Paul. That was front, and we are in the middle of a paragraph of a point that Paul is making. And it doesn't make sense on its own. So I'm going to do something that I don't do a lot, which is go verse by verse. Open Bible preaching. It's the only way I could make any sense of this. I don't have any funny movie clips or pastor jokes or pop culture references this morning. I mean, every sentence here sounds like a tangent of a tangent. Like he gets caught in his own thought and then he goes off and onto another thought and then comes back. Okay, so Paul's letter to the church in Rome, the Roman church. This is the Roman Empire at the time of Paul. Paul is in the Greek city of Corinth, writing to the Christian community in Rome. He has never been to Rome. He didn't know any of these people in Rome. The letter to the Romans is his introduction to the church in Rome. And he is sending people with this letter, mostly women, by the way, if you want to read the last chapter 16 of Romans. Paul sends mostly women as preachers to the church in Rome. Rome is the center of the world. Of course, we know more about how there were empires everywhere at this point. There were empires in Asia, there were empires across Africa, there were empires in South America, empires and kingdoms in North America. But the way the communication worked, the way the travel worked, for the colors in this map, Rome was the center of the world. It was the seat of the gods, the Roman gods stolen from Hellenistic Greek gods. Somehow, amidst the monuments and the temples to Jupiter and Mars and Neptune and Emperor Augustus Caesar, who declared himself a god, and his son Julius Caesar, who called himself son of the gods, there's a Christian community in the center of the world. We don't know where they came from. Maybe some were in Jerusalem for the Passover, and they were there for the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. Maybe some were in Jerusalem for Pentecost and were among those 3,000 who were baptized that day after Peter's fiery preaching and the gift of the Holy Spirit. We don't know. Paul praises them for their strength and their faith, which is spread around the empire. He apologizes for not visiting them. He opens the gospel message to Greeks and non-Greeks, and then he just starts. This is the first sentence after Paul's extended greeting. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of the people. I hope this email finds you well in ancient Israel. And Romans, this is the most theological, academic writing we have in the Second Testament. Romans is not populist. It is not storytelling. It is not poetry. It is not pastoral. It is theology. It is the first Christian theological textbook, which makes it one of my favorites and incredibly boring to all of you. So right in this section, last week we did Romans 8, verses 1 through 11. Now we're doing 12 through 25. And guess what? Next Sunday, we're doing 25 through 38. So Paul, in the section right before this, last week we talked about Paul has just concluded that the law, weakened by the body, weakened by the flesh that wrote the law and that attempts to follow the law, it no longer has any authority over us because of the grace enacted by God through Jesus Christ. God has liberated us from a life in the flesh, the ways of the world, and into a life in the Spirit. And now he needs to explain what that means. What happens because of that liberation to life in the Spirit? And we're going to do that in just a second after this hydration break. Everybody take a deep breath. We're going to get into it. I'm trying to keep this light because every sentence of this passage is a sermon. Okay, verse 12. So then, brothers and sisters, we are debtors, first comma. There are 7 commas in this first sentence of Paul's that we read this morning. This is his first tangent. He says, we are debtors. Oh, I had better explain now who the debt is to, just to remind them what we just talked about. Not debtors of the flesh to live according to the flesh. Well, I should probably expound on that a little bit. So, hyphen. For if you live according to this, and this is just, he was reviewing what he just wrote. This is a summary of the point he just made. The ways of the body will lead to death, and the ways of the Spirit will lead to life. It's a parenthetical. You can see he says, we are debtors, and then there's another thought, and then there's a thought after that. So we can take that thought out. The complete thought, the corrected thought, is so then, brothers and sisters, we are debtors. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. So we can change debtors to indebted, obliged. I am much obliged. Paul is switching from a financial understanding of debtors to a familial understanding of debtors. He means indebted as we are maybe indebted to a great teacher of ours. We are indebted to good parents. This is not a debt we will be required to pay back with compound interest charged. We couldn't, even if we wanted to and tried. This is a reversal of debt. It's a debt in terms of that it is an investment in us by God. A wealth in the Spirit, the wealth that grows within us, the Spirit grows exponentially because we have not received the Spirit in terms of obligations and following the rules, what Paul calls enslavement, but we have received the Spirit as adopted children. And as adopted children, we are now the children of God, and as children of God, we are now heirs to all God's estate, co-heirs with Christ. But we are the inheritors of God's vast fortune of grace and mercy. This was saying, into this world where the firstborn son is the heir and nobody else is. The firstborn son is the heir and the spare, right? The second son gets nothing. But Paul says we are co-inheritors with Christ. And then he says, but if you're going to inherit the glory, you have to inherit the responsibility, what he calls suffering. We must suffer with Christ to experience the glory of Christ. To the Romans, the Gentiles who were in this Christian community, there were children of gods. Achilles, Perseus, Hercules. I don't know who the Roman version of these people are, but they would know. Half gods, usually by trickery or sexual assault by the gods. And these people were not well from being half gods. They had problems. We're talking a whole lot about the Odyssey this week and how you can't possibly cast a black woman to be Hera or Helen of Troy. And one of my friends wrote, you understand that Zeus came to earth disguised as a swan to impregnate Helen's mother. So you're in the story. So you are upset that it's a black woman playing Helen of Troy. You should be upset that she's not half goose. Like, what are you talking about? This is mythology. But they understood children of God. And Julius Caesar declared himself son of the gods. Augustus was the god of the Roman Empire. To the Jewish people, the children of God were literally the 12 tribes, the children of Israel, whose name was Jacob and have changed to Israel. And Paul breaks down both of those walls, breaks down the wall for the Greek and the walls for the Jewish people, and says, anyone who is led by the Spirit of God is a child of God. The Spirit moves in us and allows us to even pray Abba. And he would have switched in the letter, in writing, and in its delivery by Phoebe, a woman named Phoebe, who would be saying this in Greek, and then she would have said Abba in Aramaic. And just the fact that we get to do that, the Spirit working within us, claiming God as Father, as parent. God claims us as God's own in this adoption. The paperwork is signed by the Spirit in the blood of the Lamb. And we share our inheritance with Jesus Christ. And then, right here, in between verses 17 and 18, a tension starts to grow. Suffering, longing, growing, labor pains. We are living in that tension. This is the tensest picture I've ever seen. If you read music, you understand. If you don't, those are just rests, but they keep getting faster. It's just silence, but it keeps speeding up. That's how tension works. It's what anxiety looks like in my brain. I consider the sufferings of this present time not worth comparing with the glory we are about to receive. For creation waits with longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to frustration, futility, not of its own choosing, but by the one who subjected it, God, by God's own will, in a hope that the creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay. We are waiting for the creation itself to be redeemed. Creation enters into everlasting eternal life in the grace of God in Jesus Christ, not just human souls. And we can hear creation groaning, waiting, as it suffers the pains of labor. Not only creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. That is us. That is where we are. That tension is where we live. The tension between the first fruits of the Spirit and our full adoption, our full redemption. We call it the now and the not yet in seminary. God's grace and the fullness of God's grace is ours right now in Jesus Christ, and it is not yet revealed and not yet fully realized. Calling it the first fruits is intentional. Calling it first fruits is supposed to make us hungry for more fruits. But we just get a little taste of it. And give a baby its first strawberry and then take it away and see what they do. We get just this little taste that gives us an idea of the full flavor profile. We've experienced the first fruits, so we know the glory that is to come and the glory that is not yet here. We can anticipate it. That's what hope is. Our adoption as children of God requires a new birth that even creation itself is waiting for. And a new birth as children of God and as creation redeemed requires labor pains. Paul doesn't say the pains of injury or the pains of illness. Labor pains are not the same as injury pains. Labor pains are the pains of preparation, the pains of building muscle. The only way to build muscle is to break it down and stretch it out so that it rebuilds itself. That's why we are sore after a workout. It's a different pain than there's something wrong with our leg. The pain of softening and stretching the body for birth. The pain of growing the bones of a child. First one way, then the other way, stretching and pulling against one another. And horrible things can happen if the pains of labor are skipped or truncated or shortened or forced or interrupted. For 2,000 years, we've been saying, but why aren't we any different? Jesus came, Jesus lived, Jesus taught, Jesus died, and Jesus was resurrected. And we kept on killing each other. We kept on dehumanizing one another. We kept on just exploiting the planet. Where is this redemption? We are in that tension, the pain of labor, because we are saved in hope. We are saved into hope. We are saved into an unfinished situation. Maybe our salvation is actually just from apathy and resignation into hope. Hope causes tension. Hope is the source of tension. Hope is not optimism. If optimism is seeing the glass of water half full instead of half empty, hope is knowing that the glass could be filled to the top. And it could be a beer. That's the tension. We know what could be. And we know what is. And what is doesn't make sense to us in light of what could be. In that tension is suffering. And suffering and hope are not contradictions. They are intrinsically woven. And one could argue, a convincing argument could be made that hope and suffering are interdependent. Without suffering, what is there to hope for? And where does the suffering come from if not the hope that things can be better, the knowledge that things could be better? And the more persistent the suffering, the deeper the hope. And the more we dream of better days, the more acutely we experience the suffering. That's where we are. We live in the tension of hope. Friends, you could not be upset by what's happening in the world right now. Easily. We could not feel the tension in the world right now. We just have to give up our hope for something better. If we weren't hoping for something better, we wouldn't feel the tension in the world right now. It is our deep and spirit-filled and experiential and ancestral certainty of what the world could be that causes the sadness and anger at how it is. We could not be bothered by what's going on. Many people are not. Many people are so sheltered in their own privilege and comfort and safety that their own personal contentment disconnects themselves from the sufferings of the world. Many people have given up and given in to the sufferings of the world. Many people have given in to the sufferings of the world and lost their hope. You know that psalm that says, "How long, O Lord?" That song is 3,000 years old. That's how long we've been praying that. That's a long time. And many people have given up that this could be better. We only hurt because we hope. Because despair is not the opposite of hope. The opposite of hope is apathy. And now that Paul has built this tension, next week, he's going to resolve it. So this week, I'm not. We're going to sit and we're going to leave it there. We only hurt because we hope. You could not be upset by the news today. It would mean you would have to not care about what's happening. So we're going to leave that as a song that does not go back to the one at the end. We're going to leave it out there on a tension. And if you want to see how Paul releases that tension in the end of Romans chapter 8, then you will have to be here next week for that sermon. Ha ha.